Welcome to Coach SG and Friends, where we discuss topics that help you have a better relationship with yourself and others. I am Coach SG, otherwise known as your joyful friend. I'm a relationship coach and life mentor, an entrepreneur and speaker. I'm based out of Los Angeles, but originally from Brooklyn, New York. I love great music, deep conversations, and inspiring people to live their best emotional lives and create their most amazing love story. Let me introduce you to my two friends, Janessa Rose and Lisa Miranda. Janessa is the CEO of Motivational Monsters, a nonprofit that helps people activate mental health and emotional well-being through creative arts. She is the author of How to Stop Being an Effing Bum. BUM stands for Broken Urban Mentality. She's been dubbed the Tony Robbins / Cardi B of motivational speakers, and she calls herself the Galactic Goddess. Lisa Miranda is an actor and creative director. She's also dabbling in producing. She is based in Miami, New York, and Paris. She is a world traveler who speaks several languages, who loves life, good people, and good conversation. So we want to welcome you to our podcast. Let's get started. Hi, my joyful friends. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am alone today, but my two other joyful friends will be joining us later for Asking for Friends segment. And that segment is where someone sends us a question anonymously, and we give our feedback, and hopefully it will help you move through some obstacles. But today, we're going to be talking about are you suffering in your relationship? It just seems like, a lot of people are struggling in their relationship. They really want to have a better love story, but don't really know how to do that. And everybody's at a different place. So, maybe, your relationship is just full of a lot of friction. Like, you're not arguing about one topic, but you're arguing about everything. So there's just a lot of friction. There isn't one special component. It's just like everything just feels like it's a struggle. So there are people that are experiencing that. And then maybe one or both of you emotionally checked out. Oftentimes we're just doing the motions and habits, that we normally do. But we haven't actually connected. We're just doing the daily habits, doing the laundry, going to get the groceries, watching this TV show, going to bed at night, and doing it over and over again, but not really doing anything to make sure that you're staying connected. Maybe one person violated the code of your relationship, and that's different for everybody. So maybe somebody either cheated, or there's a family member that they're allowing to act crazy, and there's no boundaries around it. It feels like one of you have violated the code of your relationship, and you don't know how to move through it. Maybe somebody is going through some substance abuse. Maybe they're drinking too much, partying too much. They're altering their emotional state too much, and it's causing a disconnection in your relationship. Or perhaps somebody's going through some emotional pain. There's a lot of times people are not fulfilled themselves, and the relationship was fulfilling them at first, and now they just got all this emotional pain. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they're supposed to be, and like life just feels terrible. And maybe their career is not off the ground, like whatever it is that they're struggling with, or they're struggling with depression, whatever it is. It's something that's disconnecting you. Or maybe there's a situation where something did happen, maybe something big, whatever it is, and you forgave them, but now you're having a hard time trusting again. You forgave them, but you're having a hard time trusting, and it's not allowing you to connect, because you still feel like, I forgave you, but I ain't getting about this thing, so it just feels like you can't get vulnerable with each other again. And if you can't get vulnerable, you stay disconnected. Perhaps there's some financial strains. Maybe one of you is the breadwinner and taking on all the feel like everything is on top of you and you need some help and you don't know, they're not working or they can't work or whatever. Maybe so possibly there's some financial strains. Sometimes there's parental, or just family strains also, maybe there's family members living with you, or you don't agree on how you parent, or and it's a big issue, that's causing a lot of friction. And sometimes it's just incompatibility, like you just don't feel compatible anymore. Like you guys had this life and you did these things together, and now somebody wants to do something different. And you're like, well, we used to do this stuff all the time and you used to like it. Now you don't. And, and then that brings up fear, and then that's disconnecting you. So if you're feeling disconnected and you're wondering what to do, I'm hoping today's podcast and episode will help you figure out some ways that you can move through these obstacles as a couple. So the first thing I would say is that there has to be two willing participants. You can't be the only one fixing your relationship. The person that you're with, has to feel that same need to fix the relationship. And oftentimes, it's hard to get people to go to therapy because sometimes people will feel like, well, no, you're the problem, so I don't need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. And the truth is that if your relationship is on like life support, it doesn't really matter who needs to go to therapy or counseling or whatever, but that you guys are committing as a couple that this is disconnecting us, whose ever fault it is, or whoever is the one that's dealing with whatever, that you're both on board to find your connection again. So, and if you're in a relationship with somebody where you're trying to fix it, and with counseling or an outside person, some kind of outside support, or you're trying to do something different and they're just not willing, that should give you some clarity. It should just really provide you with some clarity that, okay, I want to fix this issue and they're not interested in fixing this issue and they think it's my issue. You're not on the same page, and you got to make some decisions with that. And this is the hard part about making decisions, because everybody's dealing with different things in a relationship. There could be kids involved, there could be family members, there could be parents you're taking care of, there could be all these things that's happening. Or maybe you have a house together and you can't figure out how you can do this separately. But some decisions have to be made, because if there aren't two willing participants, you can't do it on your own. I think the other thing is that we don't learn how to have disagreements. Where do you learn this stuff? You learn it by trial and error. You learn it by people that in relationships with, and not everybody communicates the same, and you really have to be flexible in knowing, like, okay, I communicate this way, but if the person can't hear you, you've got to change your communication. So so you got to learn how to handle disagreements. And this is the thing that I think it's difficult. It's difficult to do when you're just not good at it, and you guys see things differently, and you just can't, find any kind of common ground. So what I would offer with learning how to handle disagreements is, you've got to remember that you're there to hear each other. You're there to not necessarily solve a problem, but you're trying to find a solution to your problem, right? So the focus is different. But you got to remember too, you got to be mindful and you got to be aware. When I say these things, how is my partner behaving? Are they coming closer to me, or are they coming further away from me? Am I putting them on the defense all the time? Are they defending themselves and feeling like they've got to prove their point? And perhaps you're not doing anything to do that. They're just stuck in a habit. They don't like to be wrong, so they're always defending. But, you've got to figure out how to have these disagreements. And the way that you're going to learn how to have these disagreements is, in my opinion, you got to have rules of engagement. Like, hey, we've got to learn how to have disagreements better. And so we've got to have some rules of engagement. And the rules of engagement might be, something like, There's no defending, right? You don't have to defend anything. You're just going to listen, because when you're defending, you're not listening, right? So there's no defending. Two, that you want to just be you want to be in the mode of solution. So when you're in the mode of solution, you're open to feedback. You can't be like, this thing happened to me, and then your partner says, that's not what happened. That is not what happened. Because then you discount what your partner says. Of course, it doesn't look that way to you. That's why you're in this disagreement. No, it doesn't look that way to you. But you don't get to tell somebody it happened this way, because they have a different perception. So you want to listen to their perception, even if it's crazy and it feels like you don't understand it. It's their perception. So you're trying to get in more curiosity so you can learn about your partner than just doing all this friction and fighting, right? So whatever those rules of engagement, I'll do another podcast episode, because that's kind of like a whole topic of coming up with rules of engagement so that you guys can have better disagreements. And you got to make sure that your disagreements are not, you're not attacking behavior, and you're not placing blame. This is a hard one, because, the behavior is what's making you feel that way, right? And you want to blame them because, you wouldn't feel this way if they weren't doing that thing, right? But what's important is that you, in these rules of engagement, you take full responsibility for your emotions. You take full responsibility of how they're triggering you, and not say, well, I need you to change so I don't get triggered. That's not their responsibility. Your responsibility is to take care of your triggers. And, I don't do this thing perfectly either, but it's really important that you keep the focus on your feelings, your emotions, your values, your standards, than on their behavior. So what does that look like in a conversation? So say a partner, they don't come home when they say they're going to come home, or they don't come through when they say they're going to come through. The dialogue should look more like, when you tell me you're going to do something and you don't, it makes me have trust issues. So, and it may look like something really small to you, but for me, that's how I gain trust with you. And that's how I feel vulnerable with you. So, and I know you're not doing it purposely to me, but I don't know what to do with these emotions. I'm trying to work on it. So I would like your collaboration on what we can do in the meantime as I work on myself. So I don't get out of, I don't go into fear, and I don't go into trust issues when you don't do this thing. But I want you to be mindful of me, because that's what a relationship is about, right? There's two people living their lives. You come together to share love and to collaborate. But we're going to do stuff to bother each other. But we try to be mindful, like, oh, I didn't realize that bothered you so much, but I'm trying really hard, to be better at communication, to be on time. And I just ask that you be patient with me. So now you're collaborating. They're asking for you to be patient, and you're asking for them to be mindful. And now you're like, okay, so we're just monitor each other, not monitor each other's behavior, but we're monitoring how we're feeling, if it feels like it's going in the right direction, if we're getting better at this thing, instead of, well, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. And every time, that just puts you in blame. It keeps you stuck. It really keeps you stuck. And you've got to collaborate so that you can move through it. The other next thing is asking for what you need. And what you need is not for them to change their behavior, but what you need is something different. So I'll tell you, say it's about parenting, right? And you feel like you guys are on a different page when it comes to parenting. And, you can prove your point by saying, here's all the behaviors that shows me that you're not parenting like me, and that keeps us separated. Or you could say, here's, how I parent, and this is what I want the vision to be, and this is what I want our kids to feel like, and this is how I approach it. And what I need from you is to understand that that's how I feel, and that's really important to me, right? And they're going to tell you, well, here's how I feel, and this is what's important to me. And now you have to collaborate to figure out how both of you guys can get your needs met. Because now you're talking about needs. You're not talking about, well, here's the time when you didn't do it, and here's the time, because then that just puts them on the defense. It keeps you disconnected. and you're not solving any problems that way. So you really want to just talk about needs and emotions, and not behavior. I think the other thing, and I had to learn this the hard way. I really didn't understand this as much, is that you have to focus on you. You have to keep the focus on you. You have to keep the focus on you. You have to keep the focus on you. I want to keep saying that. You have to keep the focus on you. And I know, you come together and now you've built this unit, and you're trying to make sure that you guys are good all the time. But if you're not taking care of your emotional state, you're not taking care of your happiness, and you're not taking care of your well-being, then the relationship gets all your attention. So and I'll give you an example, because I feel like, I share my lessons and my blessings. I was in a relationship where I was changing and I was growing, and I needed different things because I didn't know what I need, and I wasn't tuning into myself. I wasn't able to ask for what I needed because I didn't know that's what I needed. I was just fighting about what I didn't like. And when I'm fighting about what I didn't like, it's telling me I have a need. I have a need. Something needs to be different. Something about the situation is not helping me to feel fulfilled and vibrant. Well, I wouldn't say fulfilled. Something is causing me limitation, limiting me from thriving, right? But if I don't know what I need, I can't ask for it. And a lot of times we say, well, I need them to change. I need them to communicate better. I need them to do these things. But really what your need is you want to have a relationship that, where you feel honored and where you feel listened to. So when you're having a disagreement and you're having a discussion, you don't want to talk about their behavior and what they're not doing. You want to keep the focus on what you need, right? So if somebody is like checked out, not there for you, you don't want to say, I don't feel like you're ever here for me. And, that just puts them on the defense, because they're going to go to all the files where they had been showing up for you, and they're just going to discount what you're saying. So your need is really about what it is that you feel like makes you thrive, right? So, and that need could be, I want a relationship where I feel like I can be vulnerable with someone. Like I can say, here's how I'm feeling, and there is no judgment about it. There's just listening and finding solutions. Like I know for me that this is a big one for me. And it was a problem in my last relationship. So I was fighting about how the house was. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. We had a lot of animals. We had family members in the house all the time, and there was just a lot. It was cold all the time because the temperature, we couldn't agree on the temperature. And what I know for me now, for whatever reason, I like a peaceful space. My space has to be peaceful. Like I like candles burning. I like, good smells. I like my space to feel like a spa, because that's the place where I recharge and reset. So what I was doing instead is I wasn't sharing what it was that I desired and what I felt like I needed to thrive, for me to work the next day, for me to just like be good around people the next day. Instead, I was fighting with like, oh my God, the dogs are so loud, and why is the door always open? And so I was reacting to what was happening, but I wasn't communicating what I needed. So, what happens is I'm just nagging all the time. They're just defending all the time, but we're not talking about emotions and needs, so that we can move through the issue and we can find a solution. I never said, you know what, this is how I like my space. And, how can we figure out how I can get my needs met? You don't have to necessarily change who you are, but I need to have this in the house that I'm living in. But I never did that. And if they said, well, that's not for me, and I would have to make some decisions at that point. But, I never had that conversation because I wasn't practicing, focusing inward and really focusing on my self-care, and really being clear about what it is that helps me to thrive. I wasn't doing that. So, how can I expect people to know what I need? If I'm just saying, well, I need to make sure that the temperature is whatever I need to, that's not a need. The need is I want my space to feel a certain way. That's the need. So we've got to make sure that we are making ourselves happy, that the happiness that we have is not coming from our relationship. I think that happiness is a byproduct of the relationship, right? So if we're happy and full in ourselves, we're going to show up to the relationship different. When I'm happy and I'm in a good mood, you get all kinds of stuff from me. When I'm not happy and I'm feeling ornery and I'm feeling angry and agitated, I'm not as aware, I'm not as focused, I'm not interested in doing shit for you. So you want to make sure that you are filling your own cup and you are taking care of yourself. The things, because a lot of times when you think about like your relationship, you could look at all the things that's not happening, but you have to think about like, are you really taking care of yourself? Are you making sure that your emotional state is good? Do you have a practice in place where you're filling up your own cup, or are you doing things that help you to thrive? Are you focused on your growth, on your emotional growth, your mental growth, your physical growth? Because when you look at it, a lot of times when somebody's having some relationship issue, that's not the only thing in their life that is causing them to feel this way. They may be having some financial strain. They may, hate their job and want to do something different, or they want to, buy some property and the other person's not ready, or it could be a multitude of things. I know for me in my past, some past situations, it was like, there was some things that I wanted to do, and it wasn't something that they wanted to do. And, and I didn't know how to do it without, I felt frustrated and stuck. Instead of, you ever think, but what could I do to get my needs met without my partner changing? That's not something that even comes to mind, because there's always something you can do a little different to get you further, where you're not so reliant on your partner to be this person so that you could be happy, because you don't get your happiness through them. However, you don't get your happiness through them, but you want to be able to collaborate where you're both happy and coming together. But what it should tell you is, are we good at collaborating? Are we still aligned? Because sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times we are changing. We're changing and growing. Our interests change. Our needs for things change. There's some, like when I was, maybe in my 20s, I didn't have this need for property, but maybe in my 40s, I had this need for, to buy a house or whatever. So your needs change based on where you are, and your emotional growth. And it doesn't really matter if your partner can see it or not. You just have to have rules of engagement that, like, hey, if I'm telling you that this is something that's important to me, we have to find a solution together we got to collaborate to find a solution where my needs can still be met. Okay, so focus on your self-care, focus on your happiness, your emotional state, because what I've learned over this time is that I have to take care of my emotional state. No matter what is happening on the outside, I have to take care of my emotional state. I can't expect this thing to change so I can change my emotions, because there's a lot of times people are not going to change. Situations are not going to change. There's nothing you can do about it. I don't need to manage and manipulate and control it. I just need to manage and control my own response to things. Not necessarily control your emotions, but you want to control your response to your emotions. I think the other thing is, getting creative about finding solutions. We don't know how to get through these obstacles. And most times there's still another solution, but we don't look at it that way. We only look at what they need to do. And when you're looking at only what they need to do, you miss all these other solutions that's out there. So, and I love to give examples so that you feel like you can apply these things. Say I'm ready to buy property. I'm ready to, manifest my buy for best financial life, and my partner's not with it. They're not feeling like I'm feeling. They're not like, oh, credit score is important. They are just not interested in any of that stuff. They say, well, I don't really care about property. I can rent all the time. I don't want a house that I got to take care of. Da, 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 da. Then you have to ask yourself, well, how can I get property without them? How can I figure out a way to do it without them? If I was alone and by myself, like, how would I figure out how to do that? And you could go in halves with a friend. Like, there's other things that you can do, but because we need them to change and we need them to see how we see things, we don't even think of any other creative solutions. So you want to think creatively instead of attacking each other. Like, or they say, yeah, I want to get a house, but they're not doing anything to help prepare, managing them and agitating them. And none of that is going to get you to where you're going. And you may say to yourself, well, I didn't get a relationship to do this on my own. All right, well, then there's your answer. If it's that much of a deal breaker for you, you've got to make some decisions. But if not, you find a creative solution. And that's the hard part. People are not trying to find creative solutions. They're saying, oh, okay, well, this has happened. They've done this thing to me and I can't move through it. And when I can't move through it, I'm powerless. And, I hate the word victim because it feels so like critical, but we get in powerlessness. We don't know how to move through it. We want them to want what we want. And if they don't want what we want, you don't know how to move through it. Make discernment. If this a deal breaker for me because this is really, really important to me, or is 80% of the relationship really, really good and I don't want to give this up. This 20% is really stuck in my craw. Okay, so what can I do to give this thing to myself? And we don't think that way. We just focus on they need to, when are they gonna, and and it never helps. It never helps. I think the other thing is understanding that what they're doing and how they're behaving has everything to do with them and not a lot to do with you. And that, I remember when I used to hear that and I used to go like, okay, right, because they're doing that because I did this. And, yeah, they may be doing things that's in reaction to you, but how they move and how they approach things, they were a person before they met you, so they were probably doing those things before. They were probably responding and reacting to things that way before, so you're just one of the people that they're responding and reacting to in a certain way. So if they're responding with criticism and they're responding with I know better and in defense and whatever, more times than not, that's just who they are. That's how they respond. It's not about you. So if you can figure out how you can feel better about how they are reacting to you and not keep engaging. So, they react to you and you react to them, and they react to you and you react to them. And now you're not having a relationship, you're just having a reaction to each other. And that keeps you disconnected. So you have to go, that's how they behave, that's how they react. But that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be a reactive person. I want to be a person who's in what I want. And what I want is somebody who is mindful of me, who knows that this thing bothers me, and they don't have to bend and become somebody else, but they do have to be mindful. So you got to look for, are they doing at least small things to let you know that I hear you. I may not be able to do everything that you need me to do, but I hear you. And if they're not doing that, you got to make some decisions. And that's the thing, we don't want to make any decisions. We don't want to make the wrong decision. We don't want to walk away from a relationship that could be amazing, even though it doesn't feel amazing. We're afraid to walk away from, and I'm not advocating, separating from people, but you got to know too that if you kind of have a habit or you haven't had, you have the experience of not having these wonderful relationships, that you're still learning, and possibly you still have some growing to do. And yeah, you probably are a lot better than you used to be, but you may have connected on some old ideas and some old beliefs with this person, and now it's not working anymore. So, and if they're not interested in figuring out how you can move through these emotional obstacles, you can't do it on your own. So you have to make some decisions. The other thing too is that, and this becomes the hard part, because you don't want to be selfish, but you want to make your needs a priority. And a lot of times we feel like when we're in a relationship, we just have to compromise our needs. And there's the desires, and then there are needs. And they are a little bit different. But you want to focus on your needs. Your partner doesn't have to fulfill all your needs, but you have to be mindful of what you need. And, oftentimes we're in relationships and we discount what we need because we know our partner is unable to give it to us. I guess we could talk about the house again, right? So, or we could talk about like, I had mentioned like I need my house like to feel like a spa. I need it to be beautiful. I can't have a lot of things going on, and I can't have a lot of projects. I believe in minimalism. I want to have a minimal amount of things. I don't like a lot of tchotchke. I want order in my home, and I don't want to feel like I'm working in my home, like I'm doing laundry, I'm washing clothes, and I'm moving, I'm doing closet projects and garage. Okay, I'm going to go off the deep end. So, I'm super passionate about this. So if I'm passionate about that, and that's a need for me, because the need is not, I need you to clean up or I need you to keep this house clean. The need is, I need my space to feel like a spa. I need to feel relaxed. I need to whatever, right? So that's my need. That might not be my partner's need, but that is my need. So when I have a discussion, I have to say, this is what's really important to me. This is really important to me. So how do we figure out a way that I can get my needs met, and that you don't have to become a minimalist and need your house to feel like a spa. And oftentimes we come into a creative solution, and it's like, okay, so these parts, these two parts of the house we gonna keep like a spa, but the rest of the house, we got kids, we got, whatever. Or we have to figure out, okay, well then, we need a maid. We need somebody to come in every week. We can figure out things we can collaborate together, and we don't have to necessarily compromise. But if I don't know what my need is, I can't ask for it. I have to make my need a priority, because what I didn't do, say in my last relationship, I didn't make my need a priority. I was just reacting to what was not going on right. And I was nagging and I was arguing about that, but I wasn't expressing what I needed because I wasn't focused on it. And I was discounting it. Like, well, I wasn't discounting it because I wasn't aware of it. But, oftentimes we do know what we need, but we'll discount it because we're like, how can I ask them to fulfill my need when this house is an absolute mess? How am I going to tell them I need it to be like a spa and the house is an absolute mess? But that's not your job to figure that out. You got to be able to get through emotional obstacles, and you got to be able to get through disagreements. You got to figure out how you can live together and thrive, and not live together and just survive. I realize the more I discount my feelings, the more I end up in situations where I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how did things get so bad? It's because I kept pushing my feelings aside. I kept saying, well, that's not going to happen. So I better not even bring it up, or every time I bring something up, there's a problem. But it's really important that you focus on what you need, because we should be two people thriving on our own, making ourselves happy, fulfilling, our desires, and coming together and sharing that, not managing each other. That's what we do instead. We become this unit. We forget who we are and what we need, and the fact that we're growing, because what I needed when I was 20 and 30, I don't need at 40 and 50. I don't. It's something completely different. I've had different experiences, so my needs change, and it's my job to fulfill them and to let my partner know this is where I'm at, and this is how you can support me. And and it's up to them to say, I understand that's where you're at. Not why are you, at this place? No, they're like, I understand that's where you're at. Here's how I'm willing to support, or I'm not going to support at all. And then I have to make some decisions. So, but it's really important that your needs are a priority. You don't discount them, but you don't ask your spouse to, or your partner to fulfill your need. You're saying, I need you to support me in fulfilling my need. All right. So let's see what else. I think, and this is actually number one, but I didn't want to talk about it in the beginning because I felt like maybe people wouldn't hear me at first. But you have to get it clear about what you want. Oftentimes, we're in relationships, we're changing as people, and we're in the same habits. We're eating the same thing. We're have our days look the same, and we're just in a routine and a habit, and we're not focused on making sure our relationship is thriving and growing. But so what we have to do is we should really be assessing our relationship like once a year. You know how every year we have we do a resolution. We know that there's things we want to work on and focus on, but we don't do this in our relationship. We don't have resolutions for our relationship. We don't have assessments for our relationship. And if we did this more often, I'm telling you, relationships would be so much better. But one, you want to focus on what you need. So let's talk about that. This is like number one more than all the other stuff that I said, but I didn't want to talk about in the beginning. You have to focus on what you need. So if you're struggling in your relationship right now, I want you to get a book out, and I want you to write down, what do you want in a relationship? How do you want to feel? Not like I need them to do this and I need them to look like this, but how do you want to feel in your relationship? And oftentimes you want to feel heard, you want to feel seen, you want to feel like you are valued, that you're appreciated. You want kindness, you probably want spontaneity. You don't want the same, stuff all the time. You want growth, you know, whatever that is. I want you to take out a pen and paper and say what you want out of a relationship. And when you write that down and you get clear about what it is that you want based on who you are right now, based on the experiences that you have had in the past, what do you want in a relationship? You may say, well, I want somebody I can travel with, because I really want to travel. I want to explore the world. I want somebody that, financially we're building together. I want someone who, when we have disagreements, they don't go from 0 to 100. They don't discount what I'm saying, but they make me feel seen and heard. And here's the other thing. And if you have, I don't want this and I don't want that, that's okay, because that still provides you with clarity. So when you're like, I don't want somebody who's always arguing with me, and I don't want somebody who's always trying to manage me, and I don't want somebody who's da 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 da. That's okay to start, to get clear. But what you want to do is, once you write down all the things you don't want, you have to turn it into a positive. So what is that? So if you say, I don't want somebody who's always managing me, what is the other side of that? When you say, I don't want, what do you do want? I want somebody who gives me freedom of thought, who treats me like an individual, whatever that is. So you want to get clear about what those things are, because when you're in friction and your relationship feels like a struggle, you can get really clear about what you want. It's a little harder when things are really good, think about more things that you want, but it's easier when things are hard, because all these things that you don't like, it's telling you about what you do want. So you want to get really clear about what it is that you do want. Once you get clear about that, I don't want you to look at your partner and say, this is all the, the stuff that they're not doing. But what I wanted to provide you with is clarity of what you want. These are your needs. This is something that, in all the time you've been on this earth, and all the experiences that you had that was opposite to this is really what you're yearning for. You're yearning for collaboration and connection and love, and not all this friction. And it doesn't mean that there won't be problems in a relationship, because we have problems in a relationship. We're two different people, sometimes we're different cultures, we're brought up differently, we have different traumas, we have different experiences. We may have we just probably just live differently. So two people can't always like just be in agreement all the time. You're not going to be in agreement, and you're not here to find agreement with each other. You're here to find support in what both of you guys need to thrive. So once you get clear about that, what I want you to do is go, this is what I want. And then you want to go, how far am I from this in my relationship? I had a situation where, in a past relationship where I was like, I don't like this person that comes around. I don't like this friend. And the response was more like, oh my God, you're so jealous and da da da. That right there, one is criticizing me. Two, it's not allowing me to continue to be vulnerable because now I'm feeling criticized. And however you see me is based on your perception, not based on how I am. And I don't care if it's your grandma or, if I'm telling you I'm feeling a certain way, I want you to be curious about that and not criticize me, about that. So, what it told me was I couldn't be vulnerable in this relationship. So then I had to make some decisions, because if I want connection and I want a deeper connection, I want to thrive, I can't be with somebody who criticizes me when I tell them things that make me feel vulnerable. And I tell them some things that, hey, this is bothering me. And the way that you decide, or you decide it shouldn't bother me. That's not for you to decide. So you want to make sure that you are creating space for each other to be vulnerable, for you to be your best self, for you to grow, for you to make mistakes, for you to see things differently. But the goal has to be your connection, not them changing to be somebody you need them to be. So what it told me was that this is going to disconnect us, and if they're not open to listening to how I'm feeling, then it's probably not the best person for me. But you don't want to know that when you got financial things together, and you feeling like maybe you can't part because of finances, or you really just love this person and you're like, man, I put all these years into this relationship, I don't want to let it go. And I get all that, that all that makes sense. And you don't get it, we don't get into relationships to break up. No, we don't get into relationships to break up. However, sometimes we're just not compatible anymore. We are growing in different ways, or what we need, the person is not able to provide support. And you can't be in any situation. I don't care if it's a work situation, it's a family relationship. If you don't feel supported, and you don't feel seen, and you don't feel valued by the person that you love, you have to make a decision. Because this is where that self-care and that's not being selfish. That's like, this helps me to thrive. Because relationships, there's two things, right? Our emotional state in relationships will put us in, some bad places. I've had some past relationships that put me in some places where I didn't even want to live anymore. I mean, I know, and I don't mean to make light of it. I don't mean to laugh at it. But when I look back, I'm like, how absurd is that? That's not love. That's dependency. I can't love somebody, to a point where I don't feel like I even want to be on this earth, or I don't want to like do my life because they don't love me. That's not love. That's dependency. And that's lack of love for myself. So if I'd been spending the time pouring into myself and pouring love into myself, their love would be extra. And when they would take it away, I would want what's best for them. Because what I learned over the last, few years is that, I want to offer value to wherever I am, my work, my relationships, my friendships, my family. I want to offer value. And if what I'm offering, the value that I'm bringing, is not seen the same way, then I either have to change how I'm bringing value, or I have to give it to somebody else who values that. And I think that's just really hard for people to digest, because, we get into relationships, we love people, we've spent all this time. The last thing we want to do is just walk away. We want to be, I know I'm somebody who I consider to, I'm a committed person. If I say I'm going to do something, I make a commitment, and my word means something to me. But there's times where there's other places in my life where my word doesn't mean anything. Like, I'll say, I'm going to eat better on Monday, and I don't. you know but it doesn't mean my desire is not there, but I may be incapable at that time. So it's really up to you to figure out what your pain points are, and what is really, because we get afraid. This is what I gotta, get afraid of. First, I was thinking, like, I really love this person, I want to be with them, I put all this time in it, all this other shit I gotta unravel. At least I know what to expect. I don't want to do this dating thing all over again. I didn't want to do that. But as I started to pour into myself, and I started to figure out what makes me thrive and what makes me tick, is that I don't want anybody that's going to limit me either. I want I want to bring value to wherever I'm going. And if what I'm offering, and it's all I got, they don't see value in it, then that's okay. I have to go where people value what I'm offering, or I can be a victim and be upset about how they're not valuing what I'm offering. And what I learned is that I have to empower myself. I can't be in powerlessness. So if I'm saying I'm being kind, I'm being patient, I'm eager to find a solution, I'm doing everything, and I'm offering all the value that I have, and you don't see the value, then I'm not really giving you anything either. So it's time for me to walk away. Where I'm just here not giving you value. That's not what I want. I don't want to be in any relationship where I'm not offering them value. But I know I don't want to be in a relationship where I feel like I don't see their value and they're not offering me, and they don't feel like what I'm offering has value. So, I have to make some decisions. But what happens is we get these thoughts about, like, but I put in all this time, and what if they change? And, what if I make the wrong decision and I don't want to date I don't want to start this dating thing over again. And you might just miss the opportunity to have this magnificent life when you're with somebody who you're more compatible with, who sees your value. But we believe that's not going to happen. Well, because I love this person. Well, if you love them, offer them value. If they don't see your value, then let them go. Let somebody else give them that value. I've had some relationships where I was just like struggling, like, why don't they love me? Why don't they want to be with me? What's wrong with me? And I made that shit all about me. There was nothing wrong with me. Yeah, I had some growth things that I had to do, but maybe that was the end of that chapter. And maybe we were just together to learn some things about each other. And as I grow and I get more relationship tools, I can navigate these things a little bit better. Oftentimes too, we connect on, we're not always connecting on love and joy and compassion and stuff. We're connecting on past traumas. Like, you meet somebody who's, they were struggling with substance abuse or whatever, and you help them through it, and now they're back at it, and you're taking responsibility. Like, we're not here to save each other. We're here to support each other. We're here to save ourselves. And it sounds really selfish. It really does. But we can't save people. They have to do it themselves. They have to do it at their time and their pace. I'm sure that I have relationships with people where I wasn't the best version of myself, and they needed different things from me, and I loved them and I wanted to do it, but I couldn't. So they made some other choices, and that's okay, because they had to do what was best for them. And it makes sense. I may have never seen it another way because I needed a new experience to do something different. Because when you're growing, things have to be different. They can't be exactly the same. And I think that's what people mean when they say, don't stay in your comfort zone. They don't mean don't be comfortable at all. You want to be comfortable. So you find your happiness and comfort, but when you're growing, you got to do new things. You've got to experience something different. You got to have new conversations. You got to be approaching things differently. And all this stuff is going to feel uncomfortable and odd and weird and whatever, but you have to do it. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to grow, but we just don't want it to be different. We don't want to walk away from the person. And again, I am not advocating walking away from anyone. Before I left my last relationship, I went, we went to therapy. We did a whole lot of stuff. We did a whole lot of stuff to make it work, and we still couldn't make it work. And I realized, like, I need to be happy. Like, my life is about being joyful, fulfilling. It's all those things. And I'm not happy here. And if I'm here somewhere I'm not happy, I'm not offering any kind of good value. And if I'm making them responsible for my happiness, I'm not offering any value. So I needed to find how I can be happy and offer value to a new relationship. And that's what I did. The other thing is, we often, approach our problems the same way. So we get into, a disagreement, and they usually go the same way because we're the same person. We're doing things the same. We're reacting to each other. Nothing is changing. We're not trying to take any new habits. We're not trying to not be defensive and not be critical. And we're not trying out anything new. We're just like, you need to listen to me. You're not listening to me, but we're not figuring out, like, how can I influence the situation? Because I have to know that if I'm talking to somebody and they're getting defensive a lot, like, I have to just really check myself for a minute and go, like, am I saying things in a way that sounds critical? Am I proving my point, or am I really trying to be in a solution? And, and I really have to stop myself. And sometimes I can't, because I'm human, and because I've been in another habit for a long time, that sometimes I can't do it differently. But I don't want it to escalate. So if we're having a disagreement, it's not going anywhere. It's not getting better. I don't want to keep at it and keep going. And now it's getting louder. Somebody has to be the leader in this conversation and say, I love you and I don't want to fight with you anymore. And it sounds like what we're doing together right now is not getting us to the place that we want, which is the solution. So let's take a break from each other, and then let's try this again in the morning, or let's try this again after we're in a better state. Because we don't do that. We just fight because we feel like people are doing stuff to us, and they know how they're making us feel, and they're just, and we have all these assumptions, and it just doesn't get us anywhere. We don't want to approach problems the same way we always have. And we want to make decisions that elevate our spirit, not that limits us. I remember in the past, in my 20s and 30s, I used to, engage in behavior I wasn't really proud of, whether it was, seeking somebody outside of my relationship, or being ornery, like just being like a jerk because you hurt me. Now it's like I don't do that anymore. I have to think about what's going to elevate my spirit. And I know that when I'm in a bad place, and that just comes probably with age too, and maturity, not only from all the self-work, but the self-work is important, because now I understand how to manage my reaction to things. In the past, things would make me fearful, things would make me explosive. I used to throw things, I used to break things because I didn't know how to manage my emotions when you didn't do what I was asking you to do. And now, so much better, thankfully. But really, I just want to have myself in high spirits, because I know that if I'm having a conversation from a point of frustration, it's never going to be received well. It's never going to feel like love and kindness. It's only going to feel like blame and frustration. And so I really try to elevate myself. Sometimes you still, get into situations where, like, it gets a little loud and whatever, but I think the lifetime of it is different now. So there's a different lifetime, and I manage my emotions first. I don't blame the person for making me feel that way. I may blame them, you know, triggering a part of me, but that had to be there before they could trigger it. So they're not creating it. That's a trigger that I have. So I have to go like, okay, so why am I getting triggered so much? I'm getting triggered because I'm in fear. I don't know what's going to happen with this relationship. Or, you know, I'm in fear, like if they're behaving like this already, you know, what does that mean for the rest of the relationship? And do I have to, you know, and it becomes all that. So what I have to do instead is go like, okay, but none of that has happened. So how can you get yourself in a better state? You know, I'll go for a walk. You know, I might read a book. I might meditate. I may listen to some music and get you know, get my vibration higher. Um, and really think about all the goodness that they do bring to me, you know, all the value that they add to me. And then you know, and then I go back to have a conversation from that space instead of the space of frustration and anguish and fear and limitation and powerlessness, because that just, you know, my conversation is going to be different when I feel like a victim than when I feel empowered. I would say have the courage and be working on yourself enough to make decisions that empower you. You know, oftentimes we are making decisions from powerlessness. We're making decisions from fear. We're making decisions based on, you know, how they've behaved. And we really need to make decisions that empower us. And, you know, and oftentimes that's doing some stuff that makes you uncomfortable. Because if you've been feeling like a victim for a while and you feel like they're doing some shit to you, and you make a decision that empowers you and it makes them angry, you know, we don't like to make people angry at us, right? We don't like to make people mad, you know, unless we're doing it as retaliation. But what I realize is that I'm going to be a better partner when I'm happy and when I'm thriving and when I'm fulfilled and when I'm learning how to fulfill myself and my house is relaxed, and I know that I can just be a better partner from that place. So I had to make a decision that empowered me so that I have a better relationship. And I absolutely have more of the relationship that I had wanted, because I changed and because I became a different person and because I was intentional about connection. And I was intentional about who I wanted to show up as in a relationship and how I would like my partner to show up in a relationship. And I, you know, and I have that now and I feel really grateful for that. So make decisions that empower you. Don't handle your relationship issues like me, like other people. You have to do what's best for you. Only you know what makes you thrive. Only you know what you need. And if, you know, somebody else can be in a relationship with somebody, they cheat and they go like, that's a deal breaker. You could be in a relationship with somebody who cheated and that's not a deal breaker for you, because you know, maybe that it wasn't a habit, or maybe you understand that none of that crap is about you. So you're willing to figure out what you need to do to move to the other, you know, but don't feel bad about your decisions, and don't compare your relationship to other people where her husband is doing that for her, but you don't do that for me. Is that what you want? Because if that's what you want, it's not about her husband. It's about that's what you want. So talk about your desires and talk about whose other husband is doing some things. Um, it's really important that you figure out what it is for you, because I'm a different person in different relationships with different people, because it's not that because one, I'm changing, I'm growing, I have different needs, I have different ways that I'm responding, my emotional health is different, you know, my maturity level is different, so they're going to be different. I'm going to look different. There's, you know, some people like their communication some way, some people don't like it that way, and some people they like it another way. And I have to be curious, and I have to know, like, okay, we're collaborating, not compromising. Because that's what I used to think, is that relationships about compromise. You give up something, I give up something, and we get together. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe it has to be about compromise as much as I think it has to be about collaboration. For some reason, that word feels better to me than compromise. Collaboration is, you have some needs, I have some needs. We're both important, we're both valued. So how do you get your needs met and I get mine too? And we can be respectful of each other in the process, and that's not usually the conversation we're having. We're like, you need to change, and why'd you do this to me? And I can't be dealing with this, and that doesn't get us to the solution. It keeps us in the problem. So have the courage to make decisions that empower you. I hope that was helpful, and and that give you some kind of solace. I would say after, if you're gonna listen to any of these things, you go, okay, what do I need to get started? What you need to get started is you need to write down, what you really want from a relationship. And then you have to, kind of look at your relationship without the judgment and without the fear and the anguish. Like, does it meet what I'm looking for? And does it meet it, 80%, 60%, 40%? So say if it's not meeting it, now you got to go like, okay, so how can I get some support? I'm a, relationship coach, so I do coaching. If, you want to do that with me. I'm also working on some courses to teach people how to have disagreements. So you can buy a course. But, if you're the only one reading it and you're the only one interested in it, it could help. You can try it. I wouldn't say give it up. You try it, because sometimes you have to be the one that change the relationship. And most times, we don't want to be the one changing. We want them to change. Like, I've been changing a lot. I don't want to change anymore. And if you're in that place, you're in that place. But if you change you and how you're reacting to them, you will change, a lot of the relationship. It may be where you're just too far away, because if you're not connecting at all, you're not emotionally connecting, you're just physically connecting, or maybe you're not physically or emotionally connecting, then you've got to really ask yourself, if you feel like I've done everything, I'm focusing on myself, I'm, trying to make sure my communication is right. I'm trying to be mindful. I'm doing all these things, and it's still not working. Then that should give you some clarity on what you need to do. Or if you feel like, yeah, I'm a hot mess and I can't get myself together, but I just want them to love me through it. Like, people need their happiness too, so you got to figure out, you got to make some decisions. And sometimes the decision is to walk away from somebody if you're not adding value to their life, or they're not adding value to yours. So I don't know. I felt like it went to, if you're suffering in your relationship, you need to part ways. And that's not what I mean. But you do want to ask yourself some questions, and you want to empower yourself to make some good decisions for yourself. And if it's a big fundamental issue, because a lot of times we're fighting over big fundamental issues like family, boundaries, lying, like all this kind of stuff. If there's some big fundamental issues, you got to ask yourself how you can change the dynamic of the relationship so that you can get a different response. And after you're doing that, if it's still not working, then you've got to know that God has another plan for you, and that this was here to teach you something. And even though you thought it was supposed to be for a lifetime, it's not, it was to get you to your lifetime partner. And you either extract the lesson and take some wisdom from the situation and learn how you can be better, so that you're not loving from fear and limitation and powerlessness and frustration and anger. That's not love. That's not love. Those are negative emotions. And love comes, from freedom, from clarity, from compassion, from kindness. It comes from all those things. And sometimes, we could still love somebody. I've had more than one relationship where I was in love with somebody and I still walked away because I wasn't, I wasn't adding value, or I wasn't getting any value out of it. And I knew that they couldn't do it differently. But I had to empower myself to make those decisions for myself, and I'm so glad that I did. So, so now I'm passionate about helping people, have better relationships, because, we went to therapy, and these are some takeaways. When we went to therapy, I just felt like it was forever. There was no end in sight. And, we would talk to each other when we got to therapy. We'd work out the issues with the therapist, but we weren't figuring out how we can do that without the therapist. So I didn't see how we could do this on our own when we weren't going to therapy for tools, and we were going to therapy for the therapist to fix us. The therapist is not going to fix us. They're going to open up, the dialogue. They can give you some tools about how you can communicate better and how you can move through these obstacles in your relationship, but they're not going to be your mediator all the time. They're supposed to help you get tools. So, and I realized that I didn't feel like my therapist, at the one that we had, where we had a couple of them, but I didn't feel like it was that. And so I took away some things that I felt like, this is what would really have worked for me. And now, that's how I counsel, how I coach. I'm gonna call counsel. That's how I coach. I help people focus on what their vision is as a couple. I have them, help them get clear on their vision together as a couple. And then, I help them focus on themselves, making themselves happy. And then I help them find rules of engagement for um, their disagreements, so that they can move through these obstacles. And and how they can just thrive as a couple. So we're not working through problems. I'm not here to go like, well, this one did this to me and did it, and then how did that make you feel when they did? I'm not doing all that. Like, here's your vision. Here's what you said you wanted to do. Is this fit into what your vision is? And and are you accountable for the things that make you happy? And have you thought of some creative ways of how to move through this? I have to give them those tools, and have them ask themselves different questions so they can move through their obstacles. So if you're suffering in your relationship, if you're suffering in your relationship and you feel like you can't do it alone, get some help. Get some help. Get some people to help you move through these emotional obstacles. And if you're the only one that wants to get help, then maybe just get some help for yourself. Because oftentimes you just need somebody to talk to you about this. And when you're talking to friends about this, they're going to give you their perception based on, how they do relationships. So, you need kind of an unbiased person, who is going to help you navigate some of these situations, and not give you necessarily advice, but give you tools of how you need to manage, these obstacles. So I hope that was helpful. And so now we're going to go to asking for a friend. So bring it on, Lisa.
Hey everybody, this is Lisa Miranda, and I am excited to bring an asking for a friend to you all today. So today's question, we have a married woman, who says she is ready to expand, ready to take on new career opportunities, but she feels like her husband is not. He's just not as receptive to change as she is. And she wanted to know, how do you continue to grow, take on new challenges, without isolating and pushing away the people who are currently in your life and are very important to you? But your current situation feels stagnant and you are ready for much more. So I am super excited to tackle this question with the other ladies of Coach SG and Friends. And we are also hoping to get more questions from viewers just like you. Hey guys, so fantastic question, dear friend. I would have to say first, congratulations on all of this exciting energy, this transformation that's happening inside you. That's really, really exciting and beautiful. I think it's really important to honor that and not worry so much about other people not being able to understand the direction that you're going in yet. Explore, be curious about how you feel. Be excited about the new opportunities that await you. Look at the jobs, look at where it can take you and how you can become the full version of who you are. And I noticed for me, sometimes when I don't want to take a risk, I do think, oh, well, I'll pin it on someone else. Well, you know what? I won't have the availability for this person, or that might change this relationship. But I think sometimes that's fair, because the people fear, not fair, because I think the people who love you, they want to see you grow and they want to see you at your best. And they may not get it right then and there, but if you're going to move forward with them, you can't be afraid to fly, So I say go for what you're feeling, Journal it if you can't talk about it. Find, a community that supports it, the things that you want to do. Feel free in being who you are, and let that freedom inspire the people in your life to take more leaps and bounds in the direction that they really see themselves into. I think it's so powerful, especially as women, for us to really feel in control of our lives and not feel limited by the perspective of men or family or society. So if you feel ready for more, I say go, 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 go.
Hi, everybody. It's Janessa Rose. My answer to this question looks a lot like comparing negative to positive. This is the thing. When we're on our healing journey, we start to change. We start to shift our vibration. The things that used to serve us no longer serve us. And that might be including the connections and the reasons and the justifications as to why we connected and chose to share experiences with the people that we have relationships with, or friendships, or whatever have you. So really what's happening is this: you've shifted your vibration, and this person may seem stagnant or may seem, like they're not trying to do, but that's their journey. The same way that was your journey prior to you getting yourself on a healing path. So you have to allow them that. And all you really have to do is choose the perception of positive. Love them no matter what. Love them where they are. And just focus on you being an example of pure joy and a positive transition.
Hi, this is Coach HD, and thank you so much for your question. We love questions, so keep them coming. So thank you for your question. What I want you to know is that this is something that many couples are dealing with. So thank you so much for bringing it up as a topic. So you're saying, I want to expand and I want to grow and I want to, take on some new opportunities. So what you're describing is a need. It's a need within you, like you're looking for growth. And, when you have needs of growth, you must meet those needs, because otherwise you're staying stagnant. So these are needs that must be met. So be excited about it. Congratulations for knowing that this is something that you desire and something that you need to take you to the next level. So this is what I would say. One, I have a question for you. Are you saying that your husband doesn't like change based on your experience with him, or you actually had a conversation and he doesn't like this idea? Because it's a little bit different. But what I would say anyway, right, regardless of if you had the conversation or not, that there has to be another conversation, and the energy of the conversation has to be that you're describing a need that you have, that you are going to meet, and you want his support. You're not having a conversation to get his agreement or to get his approval, because this is your need that must be met. And, and in order to have a healthy relationship with someone, you got to keep growing. You got to keep growing together. And, you can't ask for permission for growth. So this is something that you want. So I would suggest, if the conversation didn't go well, or you haven't had the conversation, that you get clear on your need. This is what I want to do, and this is why. So now when you're having the conversation, you're like, babe, hey, I wanted to share this with you because it may, affect, the dynamic of our relationship. But, I've been feeling like personally, I just want to grow in some new ways, and I want to experience some new things. And I want to share with you some things that I'm about to do, or I'd like to do. I want to approach this new career, and since it's going to affect the both of us, I really wanted to collaborate and figure out how I can do this and how I can keep growing, and just get your take on it. And then let him share, his part, because, a lot of people who don't like change brings up fear for them. They don't like the unknown. So people who don't like change and don't like the unknown, it's hard to see growth, right? Because that's the only way you're going to grow, is that you have to be able to change. So whatever that brings up for him, it might be his fears. It may be, so I would say, to just try to listen to the emotion and not really to the words of what he's saying. And what you might find is that he's just fearful. Like he knows, like, this is how we've been. This is the way we've always done it. And if you're doing something different, what's going on? So it may bring up some fear for him. So, it's about allowing him to share, creating that vulnerable space for him and for you to share, how you're feeling and how you can move forward. But I would make sure that the conversation is about your needs and how you want to meet your needs and how you need his support, rather than the conversation having the energy behind it of, I need your approval, I need your agreement. And if you don't approve or agree, then we're going to be stuck in some fight. So, you don't want to have that kind of conversation, because your need must be met. And so you're just asking how you can do it together as a couple. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for tuning in. And if you've got more questions, send them to us. We'd love to hear it. Thank you. Bye-bye. My joyful friends, that's our show. Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and leave a review. Share this episode with someone you think would get some value out of it. We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.